Olá, boa tarde. Estamos aqui para mais um Poesia ao Meio Dia, que este mês celebra o grande escritor James Joyce a partir do seu personagem Bloom. No dia 16 de junho, temos sempre celebrações por todo o mundo, com o dia Bloomsday, e esse mês não podia ser diferente, com a grande participação da querida senhora Susan Roy, que nos fez uma seleta de poemas que reverenciam James Joyce. Então, sem mais delongas, passo a palavra, Susan Roy. Thank you for joining us, for being with us once again, and the screen is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here again to celebrate James Joyce and Bloomsday. I know that you had some great celebrations there in Sao Paulo, as usual. But this year, for us, we travelled down to the Federal University of Ouro Preto to take part in their Bloomsday activities. And again, it was a wonderful experience. It was just great to see the engagement and the enthusiasm of the Brazilian students and their teachers in this really most Irish of celebrations. So to start off today's programme of poetry, I'd like to read you one of Yeats's most often quoted poems from his 1933 volume, The Winding Stair. In this poem, Remorse for Intemperate Speech, Yeats accuses himself and his country of the inescapable ability to be civil. The whole poem is a lament on the anger that the Irish cannot ever really let go of. And it's an inheritance of injustice and righteous resistance carried on for so long that it continues to tear at generation after generation. I suppose that would be a good sort of topic for a debate, if that still exists in the Irish mentality, but we won't go there for today. Instead, I'll just read you the poem. Remorse for Intemperate Speech by William Butler Yeats. I ranted to the knave and fool, but outgrew that school. Would transform the part, fit audience found, but cannot rule my fanatic heart. I sought my betters, though in each fine manners liberal speech turn hatred into sport. Nothing said or done can reach my fanatic heart. Out of Ireland we have come, great hatred, little room, maimed us at the start. I carry from my mother's womb a fanatic heart. I think one of the themes present in Yeats's poem is also the power of our words. He reflects on the impact of words and their ability to cause harm and to create lasting effects. And I think this theme is one of the themes that's particularly relevant in today's society, where online communication has made it so easy, much easier than ever, to speak impulsively and to write down a lot of these negative feelings and send it out there into the universe. And I think that brings me on to James Joyce's poem, Gas from a Burner, which I'll read next. But that's a bit like one of these modern day online outbursts in response to the rejection of his collection of short stories, which was called Dubliners. Dubliners contained openly critical language against Edward VIII, or Edward VII actually, and stories that suggested sex more openly than the mores of the day allowed. So the publishing company, Monsell and Co., which were supposed to print his book, decided they couldn't publish it, even though they'd already printed 1,000 copies, which they then burned. And Joyce was furious. And so you can just see him in response. He penned gas from a burner, and he named names, and he took no prisoners. The poem is written as if spoken by the manager of Monsell and Co., and focuses on why Joyce's work was rejected. And to add insult to injury to Joyce, less potent works by Irish revival writers were deemed fit to print. So I'll give you this Gas from a Burner by James Joyce, his rant against the publishers. Ladies and gents, you are here assembled to hear why earth and heaven trembled because of the black and sinister arts of an Irish writer in foreign parts. He sent me a book 10 years ago. I read it 100 times or so, backwards and forwards, up and down, though through both ends of the telescope. I printed it all to the very last word, but by the mercy of the Lord, the darkness of my mind was rent, and I saw the writer's foul intent. But I owe a duty to Ireland. I hold her honour in my hand. This lovely land that always sent her writers and artists to banishment, and in the spirit of Irish fun betrayed her own leaders one by one. 'Twas Irish humour, wet and dry, flung quicklime into Parnell's eye. 'Tis Irish brains that saved from doom the leaky barge of the Bishop of Rome. For everyone knows that the Pope can't belch without the consent of Billy Welsh. Oh, Ireland, my first and only love, where Christ and Caesar are hand in glove. Oh, lovely land where the shamrock grows. Allow me, ladies, to blow my nose. To show you for strictures, I don't care a button. I printed the poems of Mountainy Mutton, and a play you wrote. You've read it, I'm sure, where they talk of bastard, bugger, and whore, and a play on the word and Holy Paul, and some woman's legs I can't recall, written by Moore, a genuine gent that lives on his properties, 10%. I printed mystical books in dozens. I printed the table book of cousins. Though, asking your pardon, as for the verse, 'twould give you a heartburn on your arse. I printed folklore from north and south by Gregory of the Golden Mouth. I printed poets, sad, silly, and solemn. I printed Patrick, what do you call him? I printed the great John Millicent Synge, who soars above on an angel's wing. In the Playboy shift that he pinched as swag from Monsell's manager's travelling bag. But I draw the line at that bloody fellow that was over here dressed in Austrian yellow, spouting Italian by the hour to O'Leary, Curtis and John Wise Power, and writing of Dublin dirty and dear in a manner no blackamoor printer could bear. Shite and onions! Do you think I'll print the name of the Wellington Monument, Sydney Parade and Sandyman Tram, Downs Cake Shop and Williams Jam? I'm damned if I do. I'm damned to blazes. Talk about Irish names of places. It's a wonder to me, upon my soul, he forgot to mention Curly's Hole. No, ladies, my press shall have no share in so gross a libel on stepmother Erin. I pity the poor. That's why I took a red-headed Scotchman to keep my book. poor sister Scotland, her doom is fell. She cannot find any more Stuarts to sell. My conscience is fine as Chinese silk. My heart is as soft as buttermilk. Colum, can I tell you, I made a rebate of £100 on the estimate I gave him for his Irish review. I love my country, buy herrings I do. I wish you could see what tears I weep when I think of the emigrant train and ship. That's why I publish far and wide my quite illegible railway guide in the porch of my printing institute. The poor and deserving prostitute plays every night as catch can with her tight-breeched British artillery man. And the foreigner learns the gift of the gab from the drunken, draggle-tailed Dublin drab. Who was it said? Resist not evil? I'll burn that book, so help me the devil. I'll sing a psalm as I watch it burn, and the ashes I'll keep in a one-handled urn. I'll penance do with farts and groans, kneeling upon my marrow bones. This very next Lent I will unbear my penitent buttocks into the air, and sobbing beside my printing press, my awful sin I will confess. My Irish foreman from Bannockburn shall dip his right arm, hand in the urn, and sign criss-cross with a reverent thumb, memento homo, upon my bum. My next poem, Bloomsday, Sandy Cove 2022, is a new work by Thomas McCarthy, and it was published in Bloomsday this year in the Irish Times. Thomas McCarthy is an award-winning poet in Ireland. He was born in Cappoquin in County Wexford, Cappoquin, County Waterford, in 1954. He worked at the Cork City Libraries until 2014, when he withdrew then to write full-time. He has published 10 collections of poetry, as well as 2 novels and 2 books of non-fiction. So here's his newest poem, Bloomsday, Sandy Cove, 2022, by Thomas McCarthy. I only came here for the cuddle and hard, dry bread. This crowd has swept me along into the froth of 1904. The band playing as if on a promenade, and straw boaters floating on the print of sunlight like sycamore wings. The L.E. James Joyce on sight and incongruous as Trieste, though all my thoughts are of boats and children and ponds. White as our pale hands, homes are glued to the spot where money still resides, where Jesuits fought with their consciousness. The children of privilege will besport themselves still, taking for excuse a book and not throw away in the couplet ascot. It is like somebody brought a winner into the village. The day, a golden rosette, his book, such good news. My next poem is by Gerard Smith, and Gerard was born in Dublin in 1951, and he began publishing his poetry in the late 1960s. He was born and he grew up in the old Dublin area of the Liberties, and this part of the city has influenced his poetry, and it features in a lot of the poetry that he has written. And it's this factor in his work which prompted the famous poet Michael Hartnett to say, Gerard Smith is essentially a city poet, lyrical, passionate. He may do for Dublin in verse what Joyce did for it in prose. So a very high accolade indeed. Smith worked all his life at the Irish Times as a journalist, and he has responsibility for arts coverage. He was the newspaper's poetry critic for several years, and he's now currently the newspaper's poetry editor. And this is his poem, Brighton Square, 1882. He would become a keeper of superstitions, subvert a language, tilt its axes, play God with all his ready characters. Not one of them is fictional. But first, a crooning father, a mother who believed in miracles. Between them, in his cradle, a son already listening to the operatic arias so often sung in Brighton Square. He was the talk of the village, of the tidy gardens, a child born on a nascent day of spring, too late for the feast of Bridget, but quickly carried to the christening font, where he saw his own reflection and was spellbound by the image. There was rejoicing in the square. Neighbour watched neighbour to see who would bring the first gift to his crib, who would ask to hold him and whisper in his ear, out there you'll find your river, your city, the bedrock of your life. Eilish Ní Dhuibhne is a novelist, and she's a short story writer and dramatist, and she writes both in English and Irish. Although she writes in those genres, she generally sees herself as a short story writer. She attended UCD, University College Dublin, where she studied pure English for her BA, and then she did a master's in philosophy in Middle English and Old Irish. And then she finished up with a PhD in folklore. An interesting fact about the young Eilish, however, is that when she was a youngster, she attended Scoil Caitríona, which was on Eccles Street. And part of her school was the house where Leopold and Molly Bloom lived. The nun who taught her English referred to the literary associations of the buildings with mild exasperation. That nun was impatient with the Joyce industry before it had even started. But still, she didn't discourage her students from reading Joyce's work, although she regarded him as a troublesome man whose works had not made it onto the school syllabus in those days. For Bloom's Day in 2021, Eilish Ní Dhuibhne created the beautiful poem Lower Drumcondra, which I'm happy to read for you now. Lower Drumcondra by Eilish Ní Dhuibhne. Griffith Park has beauty, willows, dandelions, and tumbling chestnuts, choirs of children laughing. In the bubbling river, a heron always stands, watching on a rock like any artist. These shining slopes are built upon a dump. Once the Millmount Hills were lumps of rubbish, mouldy offal, micky mud. How it must have stunk. He spread his wings and headed south through Dorset Street and Eccles, North Richmond, which is blind, and on and on and on. 16 moves before he reached the boat. Not quite a house for every year, but close. When he was 12, he lived on the riverside. He saw the heron, legs delicate and long, enchanting midstream in the land of Tundish. She stands in the river still, sublime upon her rock, listening to the best English, the ardent river song. The Joyce's house is gone. One of my all-time favourite poems is by the poet Mary O'Donnell. I've presented this poem a few times here before, but I think it always deserves another outing, especially around this time of year. The poem is called My Mother Says No on Bloomsday by Mary O'Donnell. It is not easy. It's not easy to wheel an old woman to the shower on Bloomsday, when the world and Molly cry, yes, yes, yes. And she is saying, no, no, no. Because what's left of her life depends on the freedom of no. How Joycean of her to resist the cleaned up conscience of filial attention. You need to fix her taints and odours, wash hair and teeth, attend to toes, when all she wants is to float on the lily leaf of her own green bedspread, drowsing Molly in a tangle of snow-white hair. Now dreams enclose her more than showers or meals. The flowing waters of memory rise and touch her skin, just where the mattress eases spine and bones in that yellow-walled room. Hello, my darling. She greets his photograph, flinging kisses toward mottled frame. To her, then, the logic of love. To her, the logic of no. Her tongue untamable. Ulysses captures the atmosphere and the structures of 1904 Dublin in such astonishing and meticulous detail that Joyce once said that if Dublin were to be destroyed, Ulysses could be used to rebuild it, brick by brick. I'm soon going to be leaving Brazil and going back to Dublin. So I thought I would end today's session with Louis MacNeice's wonderful poem, which also tells of our great capital. And it's a lyrical, if a tentative, love letter to Dublin. So here we go. Dublin by Louis MacNeice. Grey brick upon brick, declamatory bronze on sombre pedestals, O'Connell, Grattan, Moore, and the brewery tugs and the swans on the balustraded stream, and the bare bones of a fanlight over a hungry door, and the air soft on the cheek, and porter running from the taps with a head of yellow cream, and Nelson on his pillar watching his world collapse. This never was my town. I was not born or bred nor schooled here, and she will not have me alive or dead. But yet she holds my mind with her seedy elegance, with her gentle veils of rain, and all her ghosts that walk, and all that hide behind her Georgian facades, the catcalls and the pain, the glamour of her squalor, the bravado of her talk. The lights jig in the river with a concertina movement, and the sun comes up in the morning like barley sugar on the water, and the mist on the Wicklow hills is close as the peasantry were to the landlord, as the Irish to the Anglo-Irish, as the killer is close one moment to the man he kills, or as the moment itself is close to the next moment. She is not an Irish town, and she is not English, historic with guns and vermin and the cold renown of a fragment of church Latin, of an oratorical phrase. But oh, the days are soft, soft enough to forget the lesson better learnt, the bullet on the wet streets, the crooked deal, the steel behind the laugh, the forecourts burnt, fort of the Dane, garrison of the Saxon, Augustan capital of a Gaelic nation, appropriating all the alien brought. You give me that time for thought, and by a juggler's trick you poise the toppling hour. O greyness, run to flower, grey stone, grey water, and brick upon grey brick. So, as I've mentioned before, I'm soon going to be leaving Brasilia and Brazil. I'm going to be very sad when that happens, but I will be here for one last Poesia Meio Dia from Brasilia. And then hopefully I'm going to continue with poems broadcast from Ireland to you. Hopefully, as I say, we will be able to make that happen. But before I leave today, I would like to leave you with one quote from James Joyce. And I think it also is very reflective of the way that Brazil and Brazilian people have touched my heart and my soul, and how much I've enjoyed my time here. So I'd like to leave you with this quote. Do you know what a pearl is and what an opal is? My soul, when you came sauntering to me first through those sweet summer evenings, was beautiful, but with the pale passion's beauty of a pearl. Your love has passed through me, and now I feel my mind something like an opal, that is, full of strange, uncertain hues and colours, of warm lights and quick shadows, and of broken music. And so I feel that I too have been transformed by my time here in Brazil, and that I'm leaving. I may have come as a pearl, but I hope now to leave as an opal. So to leave you today, I would like you to experience this affirmative power of the closing words of Ulysses through our new short film, which was produced in collaboration with the Museum of Literature in Ireland, Molly. And it was scored by the composer Katrina Shembri and performed by Julia Spanu and the Chamber Choir Ireland. This short film features actors, artists, and writers in over 40 locations across 6 continents. As usual, thank you very much for tuning in today, and I hope you enjoy our short film.
Yes, I said.
Oui, j'ai dit.
Yes, I will.
Gunier, ah.
Dije que sí.
Yes, I will.
Yes.
我说是的。
شاه أطلع
Yes.
أنا حكيت.
قلت. Я сказала.
Yes, I said.
Ilan minasanoy.
Ndio, nitafanya.
Ako katakan.
Je dirais.
Moi, non, Yuni.
I will.
Ah,
Ja, det sagde jeg. Bongo.
Yes, I said God.
Yeah.
wow.
Igen.
Nej.
Yes.
Yes.